Hey, good morning, everybody. It's Robert Phoenix here, broadcasting to you live from Fredericksburg, Texas. Hey, what's happening? What's going on? It is Thursday morning. Last time I checked, the 5th of September, a day to remember, and all that. Happy jive. There's a lot going on out there, and some of it is not so happy, pretty, not very inspiring on some levels. So I'm going to have to take you down into some places today that may make you feel a bit uncomfortable. But I think a lot of you have been doing your mental yoga in this particular domain for quite a while now, that you can step into it and stretch a little bit more. So I'm going to be talking about some stuff today that is maybe a little, how do I say this? The theme of today's show has to do with truth. It also has to do with the manipulation, the massaging, and the outright abduction of truth in our society. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples, one of which is troubling to say the least, and gives us a picture of what's to come. The other is relatively, how do I say this, peculiar, but not not out of the ordinary on some level. And then the third is just going to be really funny. I'm going to send you out today with some humor and laugh a little bit. But first of all, let me do what we do today. We check in with folks, and I'm going to do that today. Let's see what's happening. What do we have here? We got Mary, we got Liz. Hey, Liz. Thursday night in Bali. There's Joan. Hi, Joan. Jenny, JMP Love, Isla Wren, Judy. Hi, Judy. Phoebe Kane, Justice. Phoebe Kane again. Three Flames. All right. If you like the show, hit that little thumbs up. I think it does help on some level, even if the algorithms are tweaked. Those poor algorithms. They're just always tweaking those algorithms. Just think if you were an algorithm in this lifetime. It would be rough, man. It was like, oh, I was something else the day before. Now they're changing me again. I just really enjoyed being that last version of my algorithmic self. And now I've got to be a different algorithm. Okay. I'll conform because it's part of the code. Conformity and code, they are synonymous together. Soulmates, conformity and code. Yeah. Football season's about to start. Today's the day. Speaking of conformity and code. They're trying to whack football, man. They're just trying to whack it. They're trying to whack it because it's got a little too much testosterone. It's going to be a tough one. Football generates a lot of money. A lot of money. Now, of course, October is going to be LGBTQ and all the other variations month. So I'm sure that the NFL is going to be doing its best to assuage its potential critics and people that would go on witch hunts against their sponsors. So a little sport with some pink. It used to be the Susan G. Komen thing. Now it became cancer awareness, or who knows what the fuck it is now. It's just a way for them to superimpose pink onto jerseys and socks and hoodies and all kinds of stuff. And some people love it. Some people, oh yeah, great. It's fashion. Fashion's really big. Since you guys like to hear about my truck, I'm just waiting for people to show up. Since you guys theoretically like to hear about my truck, every time I drive this truck, I'll pull into a parking lot. Like yesterday, I was at this grocery store. Oh, look who's coming. Prepare yourself. Prepare yourself. I should prepare myself. I should prepare the whole thing. I was at this grocery store yesterday, and I was coming out, and there was this guy who was kind of older guy, maybe around my age, hovering around my truck. And of course, there he is, the master of disaster, Jasper. He was hovering around my truck, and he was almost like he was waiting for me to come out of the store so he could talk to me about the truck. Because it brings up a lot of memories for people with the whole truck thing. It's very interesting. Oh, Jasper has a new friend. It's called the microphone. You like the microphone? Is it yours now? Is it your microphone? All right, why don't we jump into the order of business for the day? Some very disturbing news coming through and happening simultaneously. Trump yesterday was talking about how he is working or going to work with people like Tim Cook. Why do you think he had Tim Cook in a conference? Well, number one, Trump is a business guy, theoretically. Number two, Apple is one of the main sources of technology across a number of different platforms. But the most important platform is that little Saturn cube that you keep in your hands and talk to people with. And Trump was theoretically talking with him about creating some kind of social media network, not just with Apple, by the way, but in conjunction with YouTube and Google and all the other usual suspects, that they're talking about creating a type of score that could deny you the purchase of a firearm. Okay, this is very serious now. And some people say, well, he's just having these talks to appease his critics. Who was sitting next to him while he was talking with Tim Cook? It was Ivanka. Isn't Ivanka just kind of weirdly this de facto first lady? Doesn't she? I mean, Melania's out there on the photo shoots and hanging out in foreign countries, making those walks down the gangplank of the plane and all that stuff. But really, who do you think the first lady is? The first lady is Ivanka. That's really the case. And of course, Ivanka just happens to share a husband with Trump, that being Jared Kushner. So my instincts are telling me that Ivanka and Jared they're the ones that are advocating and pushing for this credit score, this social credit score linked to firearm purchases. This is real. Okay? This is a discussion that's taking place, and this is the President of the United States who is putting this on the table. So I was thinking about this last night, and I was thinking about the TV show Survivor, which is a brilliant platform to observe sociopathology. Because one of the things about Survivor that I've always found fascinating is that Survivor, only under the rarest of conditions, supports and promotes excellence. Like if you're really, really good, if you win all these challenges and you're charismatic and you've got great communication skills and you can kind of sway people toward your vision of what the tribe should be and all that bullshit, very few people can make it all the way to the point where they're sitting in Hollywood on a fake set with fake tiki torches, ultimately getting fake money. The money's real, but in some ways that's even fake too. So those people generally don't make it. They generally don't. Now, I'm not saying that you can't or should not aspire towards those kinds of things in your life. I think that those are important. They're important things to aspire towards. But there's a model there. Who winds up making it? A lot of times it's a person who's popular. Or a lot of times it's a person who is not a threat, doesn't do a lot of things well, but somehow manages to manipulate the situation so that at the end of the day, they're the ones sitting there. And in fact, because people do not view them as a threat, they let them slip through the cracks. There's a lesson there. There's a big lesson there. And this is kind of where I think some of this is going to have to go based on where things are politically. And they're changing every day. They're changing rapidly. Things are changing very, very quickly. The shooting in El Paso was a game changer. The Dayton one was El Paso was the shit Sunday, and Dayton was the rotten cherry on top. And that El Paso event was probably about as close to 9/11 as we've come to. Maybe more so than Sandy Hook, maybe more so than Parkland. All these events are cumulative. They're cumulative. It's kind of like the Holocaust in some ways. It was like, oh, we've got 6 million crucifixions. Christianity, you've got one person that's been crucified. Well, guess what? We've got 6 million. Top that, motherfuckers. So, what I'm talking about is that if it was just one person, not a big deal. 2 people, but 6 million. Now that's a lot. So there's a cumulative effect there, which we're talking about volume, pump up the volume. And so it's a similar theme when we look at these public events and the shootings and all that. It's not just one, but it's a cumulative effect. So by the time we got to El Paso on the 3rd of August, it had reached kind of a needle peeking in the red moment. And that's what happened. And I knew when I was like, oh God, this is not going to be good. So what's the fallout now? Now we've got these red flag laws because all the people involved in these events seem to be, of course, batshit crazy. And, of course, there are extenuating circumstances with a number of them, which I have pointed out before on a YouTube show that I did about a month ago called Behind the Bullets, which was one of my more popular Friday presentations, and for good reason, because there's a lot of information in there. Even a friend of mine who dabbles in my content every now and then, but I wouldn't call him a hardcore watcher, watch the entire thing, because there is a lot of compelling evidence there. So what's happening now is the ongoing gladio echo of these events is taking place. And just yesterday, let me give you an example. Okay, so now we've got Trump basically kicking this can around that he could work with Apple and YouTube and Google and all these other companies to install this credit score. Okay, so this gets back to Survivor. Right. One of the things that Survivor does, or what happens in the show, is that people change tribes. And they change tribes specifically for a reason. And the reason they change tribes is because they feel like they could have a better alliance. And they could continue their journey towards being the only one. Now, would it be possible for Trump to make a Survivor-style move? Let's say he sees his numbers down in the polls, which they have been, by the way. And he says, well, I've got my base. And my base will be my base, even though I think it's kind of an eroding base. But I've got my base. What if I found new voters and they actually came from another dispossessed portion of the base? So what if Trump makes a deal and he says, okay, I'm going to throw down on these laws And people on the left are going to see that, well, I'm actually listening to them and I'm creating the kind of world that they actually want. Now, I don't think the left gives a shit, to be honest with you. Not this version of the left. But I think Trump could make that kind of move. He could make a survivor kind of move. And he could do, it's a pivot. He could do a pivot and try to be a different candidate a year from now. And he's a Gemini with the Uranus conjunction. I don't see why that would be so far out of the question. Just keep that in the back of your mind. Keep watching Trump. Keep clocking what he's doing. And it may be all just fakery to keep the deep state at bay. But you have to realize that Ivanka and Jared are two of the deepest deep staters in the White House. Jared's got his connections with Chabad Lubavitch, which is basically a crime syndicate. I'm sorry if that kind of ruffles your feathers a bit. But they basically are. And then you've got Ivanka, who is, she's a globalist. She's got her companies in China and her trademarks, and, Jared's a slumlord. And, these are the people they're the closest to Trump. And I don't think they're good people. And they're the biggest influencers in this guy's life. And they've got their friends and New York City and all their social bullshit that they have to stay in touch with. And again, I'm not here to undermine or try to undermine the president or anything patriotic or anything like that. But you have to remember, Trump was a Democrat at one point. He made a pivot, and he can pivot again. So I want to read you the story based on this. It's a disturbing story on many levels. So this is from Fox News, and I'm just going to throw the link over in the chat so you guys can have it. Put it in there. Give me 1 sec. It's a very disturbing story, and one that really needs to bear some witnessing with. Here we go. Hold on. So I'm throwing that in the chat. Let me go over to the 15 site because there are people there, and I don't want to. Here we go. Sticky Marks, man, badass gift, Sticky. Thank you. You guys, Sticky put a really cool GIF over on the chat site on the 15 minute. Psychedelic cat, that's where it's at. Psychedelic cat, that's where it's at. Alright, so I gotta read this story now since I put the links up. Remarks against Antifa prompt FBI seizure of former Marines' weapons under Oregon's red flag law, reports. A former Marine who said at a protest that he would slaughter Antifa members in self-defensive attack recently had his 5 weapons confiscated by the FBI, according to reports. The temporary seizure came through the use of Oregon's red flag law, which allows law enforcement agencies and family members to seek a court order to have weapons taken away from an individual viewed as potentially violent. Such laws are often opposed by supporters of Second Amendment gun rights. Now, this is a Fox News story. The former Marine, Shane Cofield, 32, was not charged with any crime, but surrendered 5 guns, including an AR-15 rifle, according to Phil Lemming, Oregon's acting state deputy court administrator. Let's see. The action was reportedly prompted by remarks Cofield made in public during a demonstration. Okay, so this is in public now. This is not on YouTube. This is not on YouTube. This is not on Facebook. This is not anywhere in the modern version of the Akashic Records, also known as social media. It was in public. It was outside the home of Portland, Oregon Mayor Ted Wheeler. So people were demonstrating outside of Ted Wheeler's home. This is what he said, supposedly now. If Antifa gets to the point where they start killing us, I'm going to kill them next, Cofield told the crowd. I'd slaughter them and have a detailed plan on how I'd wipe out Antifa. Well, sounds like a good American to me. Antifa is a terrorist organization. They're a terrorist organization. Trump refuses to call them a terrorist organization, which is bullshit. But they're a terrorist organization. And so he said, listen, I'm done. If these people start shooting and killing, I'm going to be right there. That's what he said, supposedly. Okay, so this is a public event now. A public event. Think about that. A public event. Cofield previously wrote to U.S. Rep. Dan Crenshaw, Republican Texas, former Navy SEAL, to share his concern about Antifa and voiced support for having the group declared a terrorist organization, a step that Trump has considered. So he reached out to Captain One Eye here in Texas. There's another guy that's the wrong guy, because Dan Crenshaw supports red flag laws. That's a bad move, brother. Portland has been the site of frequent violent clashes between members of far-left Antifa and supporters of conservative groups such as Proud Boys. The mayor and other city officials have faced criticism for their handling of such events. Criticism? Yeah. That never happens. Based on the court order, Cofield, who served 2 tours of duty in Iraq, check this out. He was committed to a veterans hospital for 20 days. And he was barred from participating in subsequent protests in Portland. So now he has had his First Amendment right taken away, the freedom of speech and the right to assemble. He cannot protest. This is dangerous. This is very, very dangerous. The FBI would not comment about the case. The Oregonian reported it was unclear when Cofield's weapons would be returned to him. The Oregon legislature narrowly passed the state's red flag law in 2017 with no Republican support in the House and backing from only one Republican in the Senate, Governor Kate Brown. There's a piece of work. A Democrat signed the bill into law August 15th of that year. The law took effect January 1st, 2018. This is very, very troubling on so many levels. First of all, let's say that, I wouldn't say that he didn't say it. It sounds a bit like he's a really pissed off guy who fought for his country for 2 tours, saw people die for a shitty, fucked up war. Okay, PTSD is probably, the whole thing with the Army is like, well, it's all about the guys, or in this case, sometimes the girls. It's all about them, and we were like a family, and we bonded together. We had each other's back, and that's what was really important, was looking after who was next to me. If you're in a situation where philosophically, if you really have some degree of awareness philosophically after a short period of time, you begin to realize that what you're involved in is a fuck story. And so you see yourself in a fuck story, and then you have to make another kind of narrative, build an inner narrative as to why you're there, so you can justify it. It's like when you're in a bad marriage, you say it's for the kids. I'm going to stick around for the kids. And by the way, that is not necessarily a bad thing. It is not necessarily a bad thing. If you are in a marriage that doesn't operate smoothly, has a few bumps, you can manage it, hanging around for the kids, not such a bad thing. If you're in a marriage that's just pure toxic cesspool, then it's probably best to cut your losses. And that's a whole different discussion. But this guy served for his country. Now he's out protesting because he sees his country at war. His country's at war. He understands war. He understands what it's like to deal with an enemy. And he sees Antifa as an enemy of the people, as an enemy of freedom. That's what he sees them as. They're harassers and they're bullies and they're enabled. And this guy stood up and said, if they start shit, I'm going to start shit back. And guess what? It landed him 20 days at a veterans hospital. 20 days. And who knows what they did to him in there. It's not like you got 20 days sitting around, reading back issues of Sports Illustrated and Field and Stream. That doesn't happen. Once you're in there, there's programs that are running. So the troubling part is, what if he didn't say this? What if he didn't say it? Or what if he said it in a way that was interpreted differently? It's trouble. It's trouble. And I mean, theoretically, if somebody had any money and any spine, if there were any real patriots left in Oregon, real patriots with deep pockets, you'd sue that state because that law is unconstitutional. It is unconstitutional. The states, I mean, this is what's crazy about the states laws. They can do shit like that, but they can't do other states' laws in some ways that would be, how do I say this, a bit different than that one, or the outcome of that one. But that should be a law that should have been taken to court. I don't know if it was or wasn't or challenged, but it should be, because it's against the Constitution. So this is something to pay attention to, because the red flag is a red flag. It's a real red flag, and it's a very, very slippery slope. So one of the things that we're going to have to, I think, wrap our heads around at some point is we're going to have to, how do I say this? We're going to have to wind up ultimately cloaking ourselves. That's what it feels like. We're going to have to cloak ourselves. We're going to have to talk about things in ways that are, in some ways, coded. I mean, it's almost like we'll have to adopt some values and some codification that is akin to secret societies, because the secret societies, whether you are pro-secret society or not, they were forced to go underground because of, at time, the power of the church and some governments, although I'm sure at some level the members or high-ranking members of those governments actually were members of secret societies and still are to this day. And I'm not advocating them, but we're gonna come into a time where the people. Okay, let me give you another analogy. There's a movie with Jackie Chan. It's a great martial arts movie. It's called The Drunken Master. And Jackie Chan plays this martial arts master who learned his martial arts from an old guy who drank rice wine and was an ass kicker. But the drinking of the rice wine was part of the camouflage of the character, and that they couldn't see him coming. You know, they couldn't see that this guy who was acting like a fool and a bit of a drunkard would, take your eyeball out, right? So there's something there. There's something there to that model. And another version of this is in the movie The Devil's Advocate. Al Pacino, who plays the devil, plays a really good devil, by the way. One of the things that he talks about is you don't know who he is. You don't see him coming. He rides the subway. He doesn't ride in limos. He's not ostentatious. And therein lies part of his power, is that people don't know where he's coming from. And I think on some level, at some point, we're going to have to begin to adopt a bit of this strategy, because they're looking for people to blow their lids. And guess what? If they don't blow their lids, they'll create people that will blow their lids, just so they can have their narrative, just so that they can enact some of these laws. But it's like, if you're not there, how can somebody hit you? You have to sacrifice your competency. But you may want to think about how you present yourself and your ideas. It's just something to think about. I'm all for freedom of expression and freedom of speech, but we're on the front lines of that right now, and there's a lot of judgment taking place. A whole lot of judgment. Let me read you something else. This is from Tim Pool, who's an interesting character. Has a huge YouTube following. Tim Pool, Where is it? Find the story. Tim Pool was reporting the fact that a whole lot of YouTube channels got deplatformed. Big time. Bigly. Let me throw this. This is from Activist Post. Let me get this in here. Come on. Come on, Internet. Okay, so YouTube just purged 17,000 channels for hate speech. Some broke no rules at all. This is by Timcast, also known as Tim Pool. While many people still maintain that this has been a purge of primarily conservative voices, there are also examples of those on the left as well as the center who have also been struck down. Tim Pool breaks down yet another purge, which seems to show that you don't even have to violate their arbitrary and inconsistent rules to lose your free speech and possibly your livelihood. Can a platform that punishes its own content creators continue to survive? Yes, Tim, they can. They can. And the reason why they can continue to survive is because they're going to get money. They're going to get some form of kickback. Remember, 2 weeks ago, there were 188 companies that met at a metaphorical roundtable and decided that they were going to create the new society, that they were going to create the new world, and they were going to sacrifice profit for the good of the people. This falls right into that category. YouTube will sacrifice product for the good of the people. They're doing their share. But there's always going to be some sort of kickback on some level so they don't lose too much of their market share or too much of their bottom line, because they have to continue to operate on some level. And YouTube shifting its model, pivoting, because YouTube made a, as they say in the younger demographic, a shit ton of money on conspiracy, alternative news, truth seekers, alternative research. Made a ton of money. Ton of money. Those are the channels were the most successful. The most successful. Alex Jones, they made a lot of money off of Alex Jones. Because Alex Jones, at the peak of Alex Jones, probably around, I'd say, 2014, 2015, or between 2013 and 2015, Alex Jones was dominating YouTube, was dominating web searches, and YouTube made a lot of money off Alex Jones. And so they made a decision that, well, we're not going to make as much money now. We're going to cut him out. But Alex Jones wasn't just the only channel. I mean, this guy Tim Pool, he has a lot of people that subscribe to him. It'll be interesting to see how long Tim Pool sticks around. So this again is troubling. You see what I mean here? We're looking at some pieces that when you put them together, they're not good pieces. And that doesn't mean that that we can't get through this time, or that we can't find meaning and value and all the things that are intrinsic to our evolution and our growth. Yes, we can, and they're there, but we cannot be blind to the fact as to what's happening. And we can't be blind to the fact that it seems like the person who is probably perhaps best suited to take some of this on is compromised at a familial level with his daughter and his son-in-law. And perhaps his own need to stay in power and be reelected has him re-examining who and what his base could or might be. And, what will happen is, okay, now we got the next 4 years. Good. We got Russiagate out of the way. We got all these things out of the way. Now the real attack in the deep state can happen. You know that narrative is coming. For all you frustrated Q files, but I know there are Q files out there that are very supportive of Q, and I'm certainly not going to judge you for that. I believe it's kind of a limited hang. That's my belief. A lot of truth mixed in with a lot of, hey, you got the truth. We're giving you the truth. Just don't do anything. Don't worry about it. I read a post, a very detailed post on Facebook yesterday. It was a post for liberals informing them about Q. It was trying to win liberals over, right, for the Q thing. and very long. And one of the points that it made was Q is doing us a service by keeping us from being at each other's throats and having a civil war. Q is actually staving off a civil war because Q is telling people to sit back and just, crank out another bucket of popcorn. We got this. Stay on the sidelines. So there's this justification that what Q is doing is actually saving us from a drastic and bloody conflagration. There's a lot of cognitive dissonance, I think, in Q. But that's just my opinion. One man's opinion. But you can see that it's like, okay, now we got the next 4 years. Now we can really get down to it. We had to fight through the swamps. We found out who the alligators were. Now we're going to go get them. That's the promise of the next 4 years. Could it happen? Maybe. Maybe. But when he's sitting down talking to Tim Cook and getting ready to talk to YouTube and Google and all these other companies to create some kind of a social credit score based on their findings, that they can pool all the information together and give you a rating. No, this person shouldn't get a gun. And it goes into a database, and all these people that sell guns at stores, they have to follow the rules. They have to follow the laws. If they don't, they get shut down, they lose their license. So if somebody comes in and say, "Hey, I'd like to get that 45 over there," okay, we'll fill this out, and boom, comes up. You know what? You're on a red flag list. What? Yeah, you're on. Did you know that? Sorry, I can't sell you this gun. Well, why? I don't know. See, that's the whole thing. Is they don't know. And you go to call somebody, talk to them. Well, I don't know. You have to talk to this person, and now you're in the Kafka-esque world of Pluto and Capricorn administration. And that's, by the way, this is also one of the main tripping pieces inside of the communist regime. People would wind up being pulled off the streets. Well, that's South America. It happened in Russia too. But why? Well, because you did this, and this, and this. No, I didn't. Well, it says you did. So you just signed this. You better sign this. If you don't sign this, then you've got some other issues, worse than the ones that you'll deal with if you don't sign. This is kind of where all this is heading. It's very, very troubling. It's troubling to say the least. And I want to talk about good news. And yeah, there's some interesting things happening. City of Danville decided that it was going to push back on 5G. Push back on 5G hard enough so that T-Mobile said, we're not going to build any towers here. There are good things that are happening. I'm not saying that we live in a completely dark universe, although the light is getting dimmer on a certain level. You have to be aware of it. You have to be aware of these things. Because if you're not aware of them, you're going to get blindsided. And it happens more frequently than not in people's lives. Okay, let me check in with you guys. I got a little humor we can send you out on the day with. Let's see where we are in YouTube world. Let's see what we got here. Q's a fair amount of BS to not be worth my time. Let's see what else we have. Q is irksome. Just trust the plan. Keep saying this crap and they don't do a damn thing. Yes, all talk, no action. Look, every now and then, there are some interesting things that come through Q. Right? There is some interesting stuff that Q can provide. There's some interesting nuggets. And they're nuggets, but you can't build a fortress on a few nuggets. Let's put it that way. And I will say this about Q, and again, I want to be as even and fair as possible. Q has been responsible for an awakening in a lot of people. And that's good. And uh, there's the real challenge and danger of kind of just being moved into another pen, you know, so that it's almost like a controlled awakening. Oh, we woke you up. Go on over here. And it's a new form of being awake and asleep at the same time. You're basically sleepwalking. If you're a Q person, just be aware of this. Just be aware of the fact that there's some information there that's good, and there's some information there that is meant to keep you hanging on and hanging on and hanging on. Always use your discernment. It's one of our God-given gifts. Okay, funny story time. Let's get into funny. You gotta. Oh, first of all, I got to do a lead-in for this. And here's the lead-in. Apparently, speaking of truth, there are a number of vegans, very successful vegans, who have cut ties with their vegan ways. Okay? This is very funny. And it speaks to human nature a lot as well. I'll throw this in. It's from RT. Let me just give this to you guys. YouTube vegans earned millions, but when they quit, all hell broke loose. Should we pity them? Former Yovana Mendoza, a.k.a. Ravana, who officially quit veganism after being caught eating fish. Uh-oh. Former vegan stars on social media complained they have been harassed for daring to eat eggs and meat again. Perhaps they should have thought ahead when they were influencing millions into their restrictive and unbalanced diets. You promise weight loss, acne-free skin, firmer buttock tone, improved moods, benefits for the environment, and the moral glow of walking the superior path. In fact, each one of you proselytized not better diets but entire life overhauls. You sold ads on your videos, diet books, retreats, and t-shirts. You took people on a spiritual journey, persuaded them to spend hours in the kitchen hollowing out avocados and soaking lentils, and hours on the internet buying the best organic makeup with your personalized discount codes. And then you quit. What did you think was going to happen? Little wonder that each of your new videos is now peppered with comments calling them fakes and traitors, and demands for refunds at a quicker rate than you can clean them up. I am not heartless. I understand that your diet caused you to stop having periods and suffer from anemia. That was Ravana. Or sent your body into premature menopause. Vanelia, I guess that's a person. I understand why you were driven to such animal madness by your diet, Tim Sheaf. That you saw some chickens run around on a farm, bought their eggs from a farmer, and sucked them raw. I also appreciate that the eggs were organic, as the hens were not just some supermarket thing, but like really free. You're probably doing the right thing, and it's good that Tim has dropped his urine and kale-based diet, but you did not deal with it ethically. You did not care to speak about your worsening health in the months and years leading to this point, instead continuing to radiate that new age, tingled, Stepford Wives positivity, always talking about how colorful the food is and how relaxed you feel. Let's see, Bonnie Rebecca is a woman, shows off her greens and a recipe 2 months before admitting that she's no longer vegan. Well, hypocrisy, can vegans be hypocritical? Apparently. Some of you did not bother to casually mention in your videos that you had abandoned your vegan diet, even as you were extolling it in your uploads, until you were caught eating fish in public. That was this Ravana. In fact, even now you've renounced your views. It's not like you have deleted your old videos from which you continue to receive money. You say that some of you are battling food disorders yourself, but a person who is aware that their views of the world are colored by mental illness should be even more careful to not drag other vulnerable, impressionable people into their world. Yet I feel not schadenfreude but pity. Before the first quinoa salad had been uploaded to YouTube, vegans were an easy minority target, and lapsed ones and easier ones still from both sides, the betrayed allies and the gloating burger eaters. No, the real tawdriness of the situation is that you decided to sell not your work but your own life, and not even your core lasting beliefs but a passing phase. You made yourself into a commodity, and the good that you were pushing so full-heartedly was a dangerous scam or a faddish mistake. What you must be feeling now is deep humiliation that will follow you, a shame no diet can fix. Unless you're a cynical, narcissistic self-marketer who simply reboots the brand, for a new audience as if nothing happened. And I'm sure there are some of those out there. So we got some vegan revenge on some level. A very funny story. I don't know if you guys have been following this one. I don't know if you guys have been following this one, but there's this woman in Australia who decided that she was going to sue her neighbors because she's a vegan and she can't stand the smell of barbecued meat. So she took her neighbors to court over this barbecue smell. Well, guess what? They're going to have a massive barbecue party in that neighborhood. Oh my God. What the world we're living in. Celia Carton, she's an Australian vegan. Is considering taking further legal action after the Supreme Court of Western Australia rejected her complaints against her neighbor's barbecue. So the courts rejected her complaints. It's like, yeah, they can barbecue. It's like one person because they are offended, or one person because somebody else's lifestyle is theoretically offensive to them, is going to bring it up and make it into a freaking court case. Can you believe that shit? Well, of course, what did they do? They decided to put it in her face and have a barbecue, a massive barbecue block party in her honor. That is the world we are looking at and moving towards, where basically people just don't have a lot of fun. Their fun does exist in the realm of Schadenfreude. Their fun does exist in the sort of 2 minutes of hate or 3 minutes of hate that is carved out and practiced in Orwell's 1984. Their world does not revolve around joy, surprise, improvisation, creative thinking, freedom. No, those attributes they're not only on hold in this emergent surreality, they're even demonized, often in the form of a mental illness, often in the form of being able to even socially interact at a responsible level. You think PC was bad, politically correct thinking, the indoctrination of a social mechanism that people were always aware of in any kind of conversation that they were engaged in. There's a new threat amongst us. And that threat is not just the perceived, how do I say this, challenge of being able to state your views. Now there are even legal ramifications. Okay, I'm going to get on out of here. Don't despair. Keep moving. Keep marching. Keep doing your thing. One of the things you can do is you can attend the event that's happening in October. Be amongst like-minded people. Hang out here in the Hill Country. 11th, 12th, 13th of October. I've got some space left at my retreat. If you feel isolated, if you feel disconnected, if you feel like you're not a part of a group that shares your desire for truth and freedom, authenticity, your sacred connection to the divine within you, then I wholeheartedly suggest you come to Texas in October. Because we're going to be able to get together and have a really good time, share food, share company, share ideas, share experiences, and galvanize the sense that we are not alone. So go to my website, I've got it on robertphoenix.com. I'll leave the link here in case you're interested on the show page or on this page with all kinds of descriptions about what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. It's going to be a good time. All right. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to stay open to what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix. Thank you. Hit the like button, hit subscribe, all those things that the YouTube host tells you to lovingly do. I have to, I guess, do my share as well. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.